Hello and welcome everyone back to Asturis City in City Skylines. Today we are leaving the outskirts where we were working on the unique, mostly residential district next to the new stacked bridge. We will now return to the city center and start filling the huge gap between the main transportation hub and the beach area from some time ago. The plan is to complete the tram tracks running through that place, build a stop for the two lines going on them, together with some detailed plaza that will form some sort of a pedestrian intersection of the whole area. And there will also be some colorful night lights again, so let's go build it. Every once in a while, there is a place in the city which is absolutely clear how it needs to continue and what needs to be built in these empty areas. That's exactly the situation right here, because we have those tram tracks through the place, so it's clear that there needs to be some kind of a station or a stop, and we also have some pedestrian connections going from the beach right here, so it's just a good opportunity to just connect all these networks and create some sort of a plaza for lots of people. And this particular area we already established with that line of buildings next to the beach that there are not really going to be any roads going into the plaza or cutting the plaza, I should say. But we are going to do some kind of connections because there is that main avenue that is going underground through this entire block, and it's just resurfacing with that roundabout like further away from this place. So I figured that it might be a good idea to create some kind of underground intersection, which is just going to completely bypass this pedestrian area on the top. And it's going to provide an entrance into this general district, but more disconnected and more away from all of the important things that are going to be going on just right here. So this place is going to have some roads, but it's going to have them so that they will not obstruct the pedestrian ways, the pedestrian paths, and the main directions that people would use. We are also going to continue that green pedestrian area, which is going to connect it to that smaller train station that we did a couple of episodes back. The one which is insanely elevated and has many levels. So anyway, this place was also defined in terms of some kind of building styles, because we had that Tokyo building, I believe it's from Tokyo, I think, which was dominating the beach area, but it's I would really like to keep it the dominant building of the place. So I don't really want to build anything taller than that, or at least somewhat similar height. But I think it is going to remain the tallest building around. So it has very nice looking facade from all sides. So it's going to look good from the beach and from this place on the other side as well. Now, so I'm just going to be filling some of these blocks around that soon-to-be square, soon-to-be plaza, because I kind of needed to have some better idea what kind of details I can afford and what kind of feel the entire place is going to have. So I started filling in this particular block, which is just on the side of the square. It's probably going to be one of the more important blocks around the place. And in here I just used some of the more unique, taller buildings that I just didn't use yet. And then I'm also filling the rest of these blocks with these. And these are actually the newest buildings made by Mr. Comrade Intense, and he was kind enough to let me use them. But they are available through his Patreon. So if you are interested in these kinds of filler buildings for exactly these kinds of purposes, then head over to his Patreon. Now, the rest of this area is not going to be filled just yet, because I was just trying to really get that feel of the place, like I mentioned, before continuing with some other expansion, because this place is all about that central plaza, and all the blocks around it are just going to be working together with it, both like visually and like urbanistically maybe, or something like that. I would really like to not overdo it with density in this place. I'm not really considering this place to be the city center. Well, I mean, it is maybe like the edge of the city center or something like that, but it's definitely not going to be as dense as, for example, that colorful, the circle area, with all the lights and everything. So I would kind of like to tone it down and not really do like super tall buildings around this plaza, also because I kind of want to see the plaza. So obviously we cannot just completely close it in some sort of tall buildings around it. That would just not really look all that good. Even though from maybe some first-person shots it might be looking amazing, but I'm just kind of aiming for this kind of style. So we are, for example, going to place this, I believe, the California Plaza 3 times in here because it's going to form some sort of a nice edge there. It's like a non-standard shaped building, so perfect for these kinds of situation. The plaza is, by the way, not going to be like a classic plaza shape. It's not going to be a square. It's actually not going to be any basic shape. It's just going to have like different parts. It's going to have the part of the tram stop, and it's going to be like a noodle around the tram tracks, and with some like different open places around it. So it's maybe you don't even need to call it a plaza. Maybe you can just call it some sort of a general pedestrian area inside of this block. It's not even a block. It's now that I look at this place, now that I actually remember building it and remember how it's going to look when it's done, it's I don't really think you can call it a block. I don't think you can call it a street or a plaza or something. It's just going to be, yeah, some sort of a pedestrian area with some random selection of buildings around it, which is great. That's kind of what I'm aiming for, I suppose, because after building that brutalist area from last time or last 3 episodes, I would like to return to this more chaotic construction, right? So that's kind of what the center of Asturis is supposed to be all about. I suppose these different blocks of buildings are supposed to be different, and that's just obviously good because that's going to bring in more variety to the overall build. So that's very welcome. Now let's get into more technical things. So we have some of these pedestrian networks going into this area, this one from the beach. That's going to be very important for lots of pedestrian traffic. Then we have this white road, which is actually very important for connecting it to that La Défense building. There are going to be some pedestrian connections through that, and it's also going to be the entrance to this Tokyo Tower building. So that's also very nice. So all of these networks are going to be heavily used by pedestrians, and I believe that this is probably one of the only areas in the city that I'm going to build, and immediately it's going to be filled with huge crowds of people. And I don't mean big crowds of people, I actually mean huge crowds of people, right? So we are finally going to achieve that really high volumes of just pedestrians waiting for the trams and using all these connections so that the plaza is not going to feel empty at all. I can kind of spoil it already, I'm intentionally not going to clutter the plaza with that many details, and the people are going to become the detail. And with this particular project, it's actually going to be visible right from the start. So, finally you're going to believe me that that's actually how most of these places are going to look when the city is eventually going to grow. I suppose the reason for this particular place to immediately become this crowded is that it really is like a very important pedestrian connection between different parts of the city. It's also like a very important transfer between the tram lines, because there are going to be huge crowds just going to that beach stop, because I suppose it is like a convenient transfer. If you've been on the live streams, you've probably seen how I was kind of struggling mapping these or just preparing the layout of these tram lines, and I had to do some compromises. There are unfortunately some slightly inconvenient transfers between some of these lines, although I believe eventually people can, in City Skylines the pedestrians don't really care, but in real life they could probably take some slightly different transfers, but in City Skylines they just chose this one, which is fine with me, because they are just going to form that detail like I said on these plazas. So anyway, we are also going to do those connections away from that place, and that is exactly this. So this is going to be the continuation of this green surface. Here on the left we have that already existing area, which is that very vertical train station, with all those concrete pillars and everything that we did some 5 episodes back or something like that. And parallel to these tram tracks that are going towards it, we are just going to provide this green path, which is going to be used by cyclists maybe as well, pedestrians going into this area, and it's just going to cut through the building blocks, and it's going to form some sort of an expressway, I guess, for pedestrians if they just want to quickly travel like a larger distance. Obviously, if they wanted to just go between a couple of blocks, then they wouldn't use that pedestrian path because it's more like a highway, right? Not exactly like a local service road, quotation marks, or something like that. All right, so it's just a way to connect different places of the city, make it walkable even for the larger distances, just like that. Now, anyway, we are going to, that's done, so we are going to return back to this plaza. I'm just going to use this black asphalt surface, but that's just only the background. Later, I'm of course going to put some nicer, more colorful decals on top of it. This entire track is going to be working together with the surface of the plaza. That's already like a tried and true approach that I'm doing in different parts of the city. I would really like to continue with that. It kind of makes the tram a bit more connected to the pedestrian places, which, well, I mean, that's kind of obvious, but I kind of like it in real life as well. It's, I suppose, not exactly the most efficient way of building tram networks, but it's just making it very compact. Obviously, in like a Central European settings in a downtown, it's a bit different situation. Here we could afford the verticality, but I would still like to do it like this on the same level. It's going to be a bit weird with city skylines pedestrian behavior, of course, because, you know, pedestrians don't really care if there is a tram going or not, but that's like a small price to pay, really, to do these kinds of things. So on one hand, I'm going to try to do verticality in like different ways, and, you know, I already did in different parts of the city, but with this particular thing, I really don't want to do it. So in a way, maybe it's like a contrast between those things, right? So that we are not separating everything in the city vertically, but leaving some things on the same levels. And, you know, it's Asturis, so I can just do whatever I want anyway. This road that's coming from the tunnel, that's something that I wanted to really keep exposed like this, so that the tunnel entrance is going to be below this building, that low white building there on the top. That's, by the way, a school. I turned it into procedural objects because I really like that shape. It's going to be like a nice divider or maybe like an edge of this plaza area, because it also has places below it that pedestrians go through. So it's going to form some really nice looking like pedestrian ways through the area and connect it to the surrounding places. So that's very convenient. It's just a nice shape, like I said. So then I'm going to use these decals on the plaza. Now, these are the Sydney decals that I'm using also on the beach area, or, you know, on those places near the beach area, and also on the other side of the bay. And I was using two colors. I was using this cyan or something, and then I was using the goldish, like sandy color. And I was mentioning that I would really like to use these colors so that they are visually separated between each other, so that I'm not going to use the blue color right next to water, and I'm not going to use the sandy color, well, right next to the natural sand. So, and between them, I would also like to separate them. So that's exactly what I'm going to do right here. I'm going to turn it into that kind of sandy color, because I didn't really like that blue, to be completely honest. I wanted to go for some kind of warm color because it's going to be such much better contrast to the green and later some details and lights that we are going to do around the area. So that's exactly why I went for this one. And at the same time, I did not want to introduce a third color for these surfaces. I kind of want to be a bit more consistent with certain things, but just go crazy with some different details. I don't know why, but it's just, you know, something that I figured looks okay. This is the biggest, most important detail of the entire plaza. The plaza needed to have some sort of a statue or like a fountain or something, some kind of sculpture. This is absolutely perfect. I like the color, I like the shapes, and later we are going to add some lights to it, so that's perfect. And as you can see, paired with this technique of just increasing the sizes or scales and decreasing as well the scales of these planters, we can really just achieve some interesting detail in the center of the plaza that is not really going to be concentrated to the like actual center of that place, but the planters are just going to make that shape kind of spread out into like a larger volume of that entire like visual area. I'm not really sure how to explain it. You probably, you can see it, so you probably understand it. And later those planters are going to have, of course, some trees and flowers. We must not forget to do all these kinds of decorations. Yes, I know I forgot the transportation logo and the timetable detail for that previous episode. I already fixed that. I don't think I added wires though in that last one. I don't think I will, to be honest. I really don't like them in that particular place. But I added also some other details. I'm not really going to focus on that. It's a finished area, but yeah, I did forget it. So in here, we are obviously going to do them. So that's going to include those transportation signs, like I said, benches and some other details. But I don't want to clutter that place too much because, like I said, there are going to be huge crowds of people using all of these open surfaces. Although these open surfaces were still a little bit too large. So I, for example, decided that we are going to cover partially this open space in front of this California Plaza building. We're just going to create this green roof. It's also going to be the roof over that waiting area for the tram. Otherwise, I don't want to do anything other than that, because doing some kind of shelters in these places, it's the same story as with that brutalist area. It would just not look good, right? So it's much better to keep some places open and just do the shelters a bit more naturally together with the buildings, maybe, or something like that. But the separate shelters are sometimes not exactly working, and that's probably the story for this place. Now, I'm going to be filling also some of these blocks that are just behind that first line of buildings next to the beach. And this is something that I really want to just quickly get done. I actually even forgot to record one part of building all of this. So we are just really, really quickly going to fill all this place with something. This is one of those cases where I really want to go for the quantity and just be done with it quickly and have it there in the background, because every single downtown project is definitely going to benefit, and that's exactly the same story with Aurelia or any other city, is going to benefit from the quantity around it. It's going to benefit from the high density feel that you are eventually going to have around it. But if you want to do it quickly, you kind of have to not do certain details and things, and that's perfectly fine, because I don't want to focus on that area anyway in the cinematics, because this project is all about the plaza. That's where the focus is going to be. Now, let's make it functional. So we are going to do all these pedestrian paths, and I'm making also sure that we are not just going to make the open places functional for pedestrians, but we are also going to provide paths through the buildings, because these kinds of buildings would probably be some sort of malls, shopping areas, shopping centers. But even if they are offices, they would probably have some sort of ways to go through them, because they are kind of big. They are blocking the natural ways for pedestrians, so making them accessible through and making the places next to them or behind them accessible through them is just something that's going to greatly benefit this area. And that's probably what's adding to the overall volume of people in this place gameplay wise, because they have just so many options to get to this plaza that they are going to be using it just because of that. Just by looking at this place, there are maybe like 10 different connections into this place. So that's actually kind of crazy. And this is like a high density area, so there are going to be lots of residential places, lots of offices and everything. So this place is actually going to be one of the more major hubs in the entire city. So even though it doesn't really look like the main transportation hub, for example, it's still going to be really, really important in that regard. And all thanks to those pedestrian connections that I made just go everywhere around here. Now, anyway, we return to this sculpture, and in here I would just like to play with colors, different colors. There is absolutely no other excuse for doing these red trees and purple trees then colors, obviously. I could have just used some kind of palms or something other that's just green, but nah, I really wanted to have something like that. And those very, very small planters, those are going to receive some blue flowers, and later we are going to add lights to those sculptures as well. Those are going to have even more colors. So there is that. There is absolutely nothing more to it. Then I'm going to just return to some of these older buildings. This building in particular, I'm just going to fill the inside and something on the edges, really. And then we have to return to that flying train park, because there was this little patch that was completely open. I was thinking that I'm going to put some kind of a plaza on it, but I did not really want to build a second plaza today for this project, and at the same time I had absolutely zero idea what kind of plaza I would add here, so I just filled it with exactly the same style as the rest of the flying train park, and that's it. And it's actually working. I was a bit worried that the flying train park is going to have like a little bit weird shape. It's going to look like a boot if you look at it from a certain direction, but it's okay. And I really had absolutely no idea what else to put there, so it's fine. It's just, filling the place, finishing the place, I should say. Now we are going to do lights, and we have to do lots of lights because, as you can see, I also forgot to do lights in some previous projects because I was not really focusing on lights overall, so I did not care to place any eventually. So here we are, we have to fill those. So there I was just using the intersection marking tools to use some standard looking lights on the streets, on the small streets. Here I was finishing lights for that brutalist residential area from last time. Nothing crazy, just regular white lights in that tram stop sunken area and on those pedestrian connections towards the buildings. And that was pretty much it. Now we are going to return to this plaza, and we are going to use the good old, I believe that these are called the Thalia lights, because they are looking really, really good. And they're also very bright, so, that's going to make this area stand out just because of that. And then we are also going to add some colors, finally. I don't think I did colors in a couple of episodes, so this is actually returning to something fairly new, because I almost forgot how to do all this, how to approach this. So we are going to put purple lights into these balls, really. Planets, maybe they are supposed to be. I'm not really sure what that sculpture originally represents, but it just works. And it illuminates the buildings as well with a completely alien color to this area. So that's going to make that place stand out for sure. Then we are going to also highlight certain features. So for example, this California Plaza building, we are going to highlight with those kind of like bluish lights, spotlights. And there's also like a mosaic on this particular building. Yeah, there on the right, which I also highlighted with these lights. And then we are going to do some of these hollows. But at first I was kind of aiming for like a building in this place that's going to have like a very huge facade for lots of these hollows. But then I just didn't like to put every hollow that I had on these buildings. So I just kind of toned it down and did it somewhat similarly to the beginnings of the usage of these hollows in the city. So, and that's probably a good decision, because the main like ad heavy place in the city is that square, that very, very bright square or circle, really. It's a square, but it's circle shaped, right? In the city's downtown. So that really needs to stay unique in that way. So it's a good way. It's a good decision that I'm just not going to overdo it here too much. That's not really what Asturis is all about anyway. Anyway, these are the cinematics. So there was the transition. As you can see, we really filled like a big footprint. I can finally do this particular shot. I can do this transition from the beach area more into the high density parts of the city. The Soho building now finally has everything around it completed. So it's looking rather good, if I can say so myself. And all the rest of the places are obviously going to be continued. In the next episode, we are just going to fill the rest of this area between here and the main transportation hub. I believe that we are actually going to fill even larger footprint in the next one. So that's just going to not only add the volume, but it's also going to complete some of these more unique areas. It's going to introduce some unique areas of its own, and overall we are going to finally start being able to just look at Asturis's downtown from like more distance, zoomed out, and just have everything in sight completely done. And also, this particular shot is kind of maybe a little bit spoiling the view from the tram, from the first-person view. We are not yet even close to finishing some of these lines, so I cannot really do the first-person lines just yet, even though we did complete the line into that brutalist area, but on the other side of the city it's not completed at all. So this is still very far into the future, but it's going to look good. It's going to look good. I'm really looking forward to it. These are the night lights. These are the finished night lights. So once again, we can look at the city, how it's looking during the night, and it's good. It's actually rather good. Anyway, guys, that is going to be it for today's Asturis episode. Thank you for watching it. Hope you liked it. If you did, then please don't forget to do all the things. So thumbs up below the video, comments, sharing, subs, and all that. It really helps the channel. It really helps the video's performance here on YouTube. And big thanks to all the channel members who decided to directly support what I do here by becoming channel members. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Take care and goodbye.